In a world full of bad news, this podcast is a source of good news, real talk, and real inspiration. On this show, you'll hear stories of growth, legacy, and entrepreneurship. Everyday people who overcome real challenges to build something meaningful. My name is Stephen Padernacht, third generation Bronx born and raised in the real estate game. This is the Padernacht Podcast, Brick by Brick. Welcome back to the Padernacht Podcast, Brick by Brick, where we sit down with people who are really building something, whether it's business, faith, creativity, and in life. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Seitz, as in Sore Eyes, a writer, creative, and storyteller whose journey sits at the intersection of faith, discipline, brotherhood, and personal transformation. Jeff is currently editing his debut novel, A Dragon from Heaven, a project that started when he was just 18 years old. He's also working on a creative dramatization of T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland with our very own Mike Press. And he's been active in the Ace Sanctuary Brotherhood, Spartan Racing, and the Christian writing community. What I'm excited about today is not just talking about writing. I want to talk about what happens when your creativity gets tested by perfectionism, when faith becomes personal, and when you decide to stop hiding from the story you're supposed to tell. Jeff, welcome to the show.
That was beautiful, Steve. I was not expecting that, but thank you, man.
You know, it's interesting when I do the intro, I like to do the intro live because I feel like people don't get told their good things enough. And by starting off with, I guess, for lack of better terms, stroking your ego and just pointing out all of the positive wins that you may have had, I feel like it kind of just breaks the ice.
Yeah, no, absolutely, but very well done. Thank you again, and thank you again for having me. I feel like this is something it's been long in the making. It's like something that needed to happen, but our schedules just kept conflicting, and I'm just glad when I was looking at your calendar, I just saw this opening, and I said, I better take it. So yeah.
Yeah, we've been going back and forth trying to set up a day and time.
Right.
But I'm really glad that you're here as well because I feel like we've known each other now for going on 2 years, but we've never actually sat down and spent meaningful time together and learned a little bit more about each other. And that is the pillar of this podcast. Everybody asks me always like, so what's your podcast about? And I always reply with the same thing. I truly believe that everybody has genius capabilities and that there's something to learn from every single person, whether it's the janitor or the CEO. So I want to just give a platform for people to be able to do that and to show others that may be listening how they can benefit from your story and your experiences. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you again, Steve. I appreciate it, bro.
So I'm going to start you off with a couple softballs.
Let's do it.
So for somebody who's meeting you for the first time, right, how would you describe who you are and what you're building right now?
In the beginning, I used to tell people I don't know because I feel that I have done so much. My journey has taken me from behind the scenes of professional wrestling shows in New Jersey. I'm a veteran when it comes to the healthcare field. I've worked in hospitality. I was in a very low production of the Broadway show Godspell, where I went from being a musician to being the voice of God to being it's like one of those experiences when I did that small stage production of Godspell through my church actually. Someone who claimed to have been in that show Godspell 300 times. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the show Godspell.
Not so familiar.
Essentially, Godspell is almost like the Christian version of SNL. It's like a parody. It's like an impromptu skit of all the parables it's based on the book of Matthew in the Bible, and it's impromptu skit of the book of Matthew. Like every parable plays out like an SNL skit, and there are songs in between. And as I mentioned, I went from being an extra where I actually was asked like during the rehearsal to be the voice of God. And like someone said, "Oh, Jeffrey has a deep voice. Can you be the voice of God?" I was like, "Me?" I was like, "Sure," because like in the opening act, you have the voice of God setting the stage. And then I was one of the extras. I also played the piano during like the intermission. I was all over the place. You know, it was like it's like one of those projects where everything that could go wrong went wrong, but only by the grace of God, everything came together. We did 3 performances, and those 3 shows was when everything just came together naturally, and a lot of people walked away from it very happily. There are times where like I can't listen to the music, but it'll just like creep into my mind, and I'm just like listening to those tunes, you know, humming those songs, and I just try to dwell on the good times rather than on the bad times. But you know, it's just one of those things where when you think that everything's gonna go wrong, you survive at the end.
So you would describe yourself as a creative?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, I've always knew I was a creative person, but I really didn't know how to channel that and express that. And I know I've always been fascinated by stories. I've been thinking about this as I grow older. I think I would have to credit my dad. My dad is a storyteller, and there's just something about how he presents stories that just gravitates my attention. And he used to read to me and my 3 other brothers books, you know, before bed, and there was just some of these books that he read, and I just wanted to know what happened next. And so I've always been fascinated by stories, but it wasn't until like many years later it dawned on me that I too have the ability of making a story. I too can share a story. I mean, I've always been fascinated by the creation of a book. I used to think that you write the book, no matter how crappy it is, you just drop it off at Barnes and Nobles or Borders back when Borders was still in business, and they'll take care of the rest. But no, when you go the traditional route of publishing, it's a very complex process. But now, in this digital age, you know, self-publishing is more accessible more than ever, and but there's pros and cons when it comes to if you want to go the traditional route or the self-publishing route. And I started to write my own story when I was 18. I just got this idea, but looking back now, even though this is something I was working on since I was 18, I realized I wasn't giving the reader why. I had this world, but I wasn't giving you a reason why you should come into this world. And I realized that I wasn't ready to write that story. And through life's recent experience and all the events that have happened to me that have led me to this moment, I am more confident that I am ready now to write this story and share this story to the world.
So I want to just make sure I'm covering all of your creativity. So writer, piano player, assistant to professional wrestling, Backstage.
Yeah.
We're going to get into wrestling in a little while. But the most amazing of all of them is God's voice. I don't know why whenever I can only picture or hear Morgan Freeman's voice as God. Do you know what I'm talking about? In Bruce Almighty, Morgan Freeman plays God.
Yes.
For some reason, I can only picture that. So you were the voice of God in Godspell.
Yes.
It seems like your world is rooted in expression. Do you think does that make sense to you?
I would say yes. And, you know, growing up, I was very insecure. I was insecure with how I looked, how I sounded. And whenever people would tell me, oh, you have such a great voice for radio, Jeffrey, you should do something with it. But I would always use the Moses excuse that I'm slow of speech, I'm slow of tongue, God really can't use me. You know, there's more qualified people that can do that. And, you know, it just took me a very long time to accept that. And I would say the moment when I've learned to embrace that voice was when I came here in winter of last year to do just some recordings, just me and the camera, just reciting some poems, either written by me or written by other people, just embracing that. And just, I don't know who it was that said this, but I remember reading this in the book where the quote goes like this: if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. I was always someone that argued, advocated for everything that was wrong with me. Everything was against me. I would always use excuses because I was just so afraid of putting myself out there, and I was afraid of being ridiculed, mocked, and just being made a fool out of. But over time, I've learned to accept who I am, that this is who I am, and comparison is truly a thief of joy, and in an acceptance comes peace.
Yeah, it's very difficult as a kid growing up, especially when you do have certain insecurities, to put yourself out there. And I feel like if you don't have the right community or the right group of friends, and I don't want to say the right group of friends because your friends are your friends, and sometimes you don't necessarily get to choose them when you're a kid. Whoever your neighbors are, whoever you go to school with, or whatever the case may be, those end up becoming your friends. But if you don't find the right community that really allows you to be yourself and make you feel comfortable, because your parents could tell you that you're the most amazing kid in the world as many times as you want, but until the outside world reaffirms that, a child will always have that lack of confidence. What do you think has led for you to become more confident in your own skin?
I would say for me, it was when I learned how to be vulnerable. It was when I've learned to stop hiding. I was brought up in a very safe, Christian faith-based environment. And even though I knew I was loved, I knew I was cared for, I felt there really wasn't like any opportunity to ask questions. I used to think that, when you have faith, you have everything. You don't need everything else. You can explain everything with faith, despite what science, philosophy may tell you. You just got to have faith. But I've realized over time that faith is the acceptance of doubt rather than the repression of it. And I would say for me, and I don't know how soon we want to get into ACE about this. I would say for me, it was ACE that really showed me what is possible, what happens when you decide to be vulnerable, when you put yourself out there. And I've learned to, and by all means, ACE is not faith-based. One may argue that there are Christian or biblical principles, but it wasn't until ACE where I met God. I mean, I've always believed in God. Jesus is all the world to me, but I was afraid because, I used to think that I just needed to do a better job because, faith is not a performance. I feel that a lot of people have this misunderstanding about faith. Faith is not a performance. It's not a guarantee that everything's going to be right. Everything's going to be A-okay. Faith is ultimately, to put it simply, faith is looking towards the things that are unseen to that which is hoped for, if that makes any sense.
Say that one more time. Faith is
looking to the unknown, hoping. I'm actually trying to quote a specific Bible verse that I know.
That's okay.
My scripture reading is going.
Give me the general. Faith
is in the hope for the things that are not seen.
There you go.
It's hoping faith is the hope for things that are unseen.
Faith is an interesting topic because one could argue that faith has a lot to do with religion, but also faith is also having confidence in yourself and your own abilities and in friends and in society and in your parents. Because think about it, you have faith that your parents are giving you the right advice. You have faith that your teachers are offering you the right advice. You have faith that your friends want the best for you. So it's the hope in the unseen because you can't really see it in the moment until you go back and look and say, wait a second, maybe that wasn't the best thing for me, but in the moment you were hoping that it was. I saw that you've been working on the Wasteland Project with our boy Mike Press.
The one and only.
Yeah. What made that project really come alive for you?
I was trying to figure out a way of how to build my social media presence. I decided last spring to read a poem every day throughout the month of April because April is National Poetry Month. And I knew what the Wasteland was. I knew it was like written by T.S. Eliot, who's a very important writer in the modernist era, and scholars and literary thinkers have argued that the Wasteland is, if not the most important poem when it comes to Western literature. But I've always been afraid of it. Not so much there's this uncanny like essence that surrounds the poem, but I don't know if it's because of the words or is it because that there were certain like lines that are in like different language. But when I was doing that social media project, I decided to commit each Wednesday throughout that month of April, because the Wasteland is broken up into 5 parts. And the first time that I actually read The Wasteland, I actually listened to a recording of The Wasteland, and it was being read by the great Sir Alec Guinness, God rest his soul, the one and only true Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he read it so delicately, in that perfect, British diction and tone. And I thought, oh, this is very interesting. But when I was researching The Wasteland, I just came across this randomly. I was on YouTube just seeing like how other people read or performed the Wasteland. I came across this video of this performance by this, I believe she's an actress, this woman by the name of Fiona Shaw. And the way she just brought this poem to life, it was for me, oh my God, that's what's really happening. Because The Wasteland, yes, it's very confusing, and I'm just going to give you a very surface level of The Wasteland. Mm-hmm. In essence, The Wasteland is about where do we go from here? Because Eliot wrote The Wasteland in 1922, I believe, just after World War I, at that time, the greatest, the most tragic of all world wars, killing millions, and millions of people went out of jobs. And if you think about it, Europe at that time became a wasteland, and it begs the question, where do we go from here? And instead of, if you're in a situation where something tragic happened, where do you go from here? Oh, do I ask God? Instead, what Eliot does is he goes back to literature. He looks to literature, he looks to mythology, because throughout those 400 plus lines, almost every line is either a direct quotation or an allusion to another piece of work in his time. He gets all his literary sources throughout the literary canon. And one thing that literary scholars will agree on is that Eliot is ultimately mourning the death of a shared culture. That which used to bring us meaning has been torn apart, has been broken down. You look to Europe as, this place of like inspiration, civilization, but where do you find that inspiration when you find this desolate, you find this wasteland, standing before you? Mm-hmm. Where do you go from here? And Eliot also got his inspirations from the legend of King Arthur and the Holy Grail, this idea that when a king is sick, the land is dying. But just to backtrack, and after I saw that performance by Fiona Shaw, it really opened up the meaning to me, because it is a journey. It's a journey that starts in a wasteland, but it takes you through the human condition. I mean, just because something was written 100 years ago doesn't mean it's still applicable to this day. I mean, I remember going through the, during the COVID pandemic, I kept thinking about The Wasteland, and I think it's applicable more than ever because one of the lines in The Wasteland is, "Son of man, for all you know, is a heap of broken images." And within this social media age, we are constantly going through these series of broken images. what do we know? Do we know the whole picture? And Fiona Shaw, in an interview, describes that the Wasteland is essentially going through social media. You're going from scene into scenes of the spiritual lostness, the confusion, the fatigued, and when after I did that, the Wasteland was still haunting me in a way, and that's when I met Mike Press, and I just loved his video work. He definitely has an eye for detail, and I remember when I had my first meeting with him and I gave him my idea, he asked me questions because I knew I wanted to start part 1 at the Salehouse. He asked me, well, why do you want to start there? I said, well, it's because of Ace and because it has this meaning to me, but I thought about it, and in a way, if you think about it, if you just do this, if you go into like this rabbit hole almost, the reason why I chose the Salehouse was because, you have this place that's on the river, by the Hudson River.
Under the bridge.
It's in a place where it's by, Sleepy Hollow. There's some mystical, historical essence by there. If you think about it, it's a crossroad between work, home, and play. But if you really think about it, the Salehouse in that context is like a purgatory. And the reason why I say that is part 1, the first part in that poem is called The Burial of the Dead, which is borrowed from the Anglican Book of Prayers. And I didn't realize this when we agreed on a date to do that recording. We did it on Holy Saturday. I didn't even realize that. I said, let's just do this day because April's going to be busy for me. But then we arrived to that Saturday and I thought, oh my gosh. So that in itself, in that between, and another reason why I wanted to do that first part at the Salehouse because the view of the Tappan Zee Bridge, I'm walking distance from the Hudson Valley Bridge, the FDR Bridge. I could have done it there, but just considering all those different essence, just like the literary and like mythological essence and just like the uncanniness of the poem and that area, I just felt it was just so appropriate to do it there. And especially, in the my most recent video that I dropped this past Friday, having that bridge in the background, saying that line, a crowd flowed over London Bridge, so many, I had not thought death had undone so many. That line, I had not thought death had undone so many, is a direct quotation from Dante's Inferno, where Dante is looking at a crowd of people waiting outside of the gates of hell. Eliot uses that quote because he worked in the financial district in London, which was very close by London Bridge. You have commuters going back and forth. And the reason why Eliot does that is to show that you have the stream of commuters going back and forth in the suspension of the living and dying. It's like every entrepreneur's like worst fear, being locked in that suspension between living and dying, going through the grind of 9 to 5, not sure if you're really living or you're slowly dying. And I know that, thousands, if not millions of cars drive over that bridge, people like in that between that living and dying. And I just felt it was just very appropriate to do it there, kind of like in that pocket of like, just that arena, just in that area where I artistically and creativity and in terms of the creative style, I just felt it was just more appropriate to do it there. And, I'm just so glad that the weather worked out that day, Mike kept telling me that, that was his favorite part. That was his favorite part, just the weather, everything was just perfect. And this is just the beginning of a greater project at hand because I'm going to start talking to him about, where I'm going to go with part 2, part 3, part 4, and part 5 of the poem.
And so the Wasteland Project, so you've released how many already?
I've done so far the first part is out, but I've broken it up into 3 videos.
Okay.
You know,
So the first part is done, 3 separate videos, and now you've got part 2, 3, and 4 coming,
and 5.
and 5. Have you broken those up, or do you plan to? If you haven't shot them already, do you plan to break them up similarly?
Yeah, no, I definitely plan on breaking them up because, you know, in this day and age, who has time to sit down and just like watch like a 10-minute video, you know, because of our attention span.
Yeah, very
But,
true.
you know, I've definitely, you know, because the poem itself is about 470 lines, you know. If you do it correctly, you know, who has time to sit down and watch like a 35-minute video, you know, in this age that we live in, that we're constantly on the go. So as I've been studying the Wasteland, I have it mapped out of how I'm gonna break the other parts in section 2. And I have an idea. I mean, I'm not gonna get details of where I'm gonna film next, but I will say that it started at a Salehouse and it's going to end at the Salehouse, and I'm just looking forward to seeing where it goes because it's a very ambiguous poem. There's no speaker. It's a series of voices just echoing throughout. So, you know, it's one of those poems that's open to interpretation. You know, if it's being read by a man or by a woman, you know, gender definitely plays a role because gender does emphasize, you know, bring to light, you know, certain areas, you know, when it comes to being human. So I have it mapped out of how I'm going to present this in a way that I feel is most applicable to our current time.
I'd like to backtrack a little bit. You were homeschooled
I was.
from kindergarten through high school.
Correct.
So can you tell me what a typical day of homeschooling was like for you?
Wow. So my mom taught me and my 3 other brothers. You know, we worked off a curriculum that was designed for homeschooling. And, you know, the schedule would be, you know, we come down, have breakfast at this time, and the 1 hour would be dedicated to math, another hour to English, history, science, you know, extra curriculum. So my mom, God bless my mom for putting up with me, my 3 brothers through those times. But yeah, it was learning. It was learning the disciplines, you know, when it comes to like English, math, and the science. But we all go at our own pace because, you know, we were all in different grades and different age brackets, and some of us went at our own pace. But looking back now, I know I had a education. I mean, I know I got a good faith-based education. I mean, after homeschooling, I went to community college and worked all my way to grad school, graduating with my master's in English from SUNY New Paltz, and also later on doing a program through Cornell University and getting my brand storytelling certification. I feel that people, I mean, I still struggle with this to this day. You know, when people ask me, "Oh, where did you went to school?" I would get a little embarrassed because of, I was homeschooled. But, you know, after the COVID pandemic, now parents are proud to say, "Oh, my child was homeschooled too. Oh, that's so wonderful." And I'm like, no, that's not what it is. You know, sitting at home, being locked down and just like watching a video, that's not homeschooling. Because I think because prior to the COVID pandemic, there was this stereotype that homeschoolers, they're like separated from society. They're like social outcasts. They don't know how. They're socially awkward people.
Can I ask a question though? Can I just stop you right there?
Sure.
I never thought that.
I appreciate that.
And that's not me telling you and being friendly with you because you're my guest. Like,
Yeah.
I never really was exposed to it. Like, I grew up in the Bronx, so like everybody kind of just went to either public school or private school or whatever it was. I never thought that like people who were homeschooled were any different, or any sort of with any sort of negative connotation. And so, was that something that you had maybe overheard, or was that something that maybe you just kind of assumed and put out there?
I would say it's a combination of both because there is this stereotype when it comes to homeschooling moms that they're the moms in the jean jumpers because we were the more like liberal like homeschoolers because I knew families who homeschooled their kids. They were very conservative, like not like in the Amish sense where it's like no electricity, no this, no that. Yeah, but it was like we still integrate into society, for lack of better words. We still needed to, go food shopping, get gas and stuff. You know?
Well, dude, like you're making it seem like people who are homeschooled like lived like on this like separate planet.
Is
that how it felt?
To be honest, yes. There were times where I felt I was living on another planet.
Really?
Yeah, because
was this when you were like grade school or even through high school, or was it
all the way? All the way.
Did your brothers feel like that too? Have you guys ever talked about that?
We never talked about it amongst ourselves, but as of recently, as we've gotten older, we started to express our displeasures.
You mean to your parents?
To our parents, yeah.
About them putting you through homeschooling.
Yeah. I knew, ultimately the reason why my parents, homeschooled us is because, they love God. They felt led. They felt led by, after a lot of thinking and prayer that they wanted a good upbringing for me and my brothers, and they wanted to make sure it didn't have to do with like so much about education. It also had to do with like, our faith, because faith is it was the cornerstone. It was our solid rock, within our family. And again, I can't do anything about the past. I love my parents, but I would be lying if I said there were times where I thought what life would have looked like differently if I did go to a public school.
Or just any sort of school outside of it to be able to socialize a little more and get those friend groups and so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, I definitely had friends. I definitely had friends that I got to see, but I sometimes wonder, and I definitely thought about that when I was in college, when I was trying to find a job that matched my degree. Sometimes when I got like really down on myself or like depressed, I thought, what would a life would have been like if I went to a public school, if I got to experience everything that all public school students got to experience. But looking back now, looking back now, it's like, what are we even learning? What are we even learning, in the school system? It's like, I don't know.
Well, I'll say this.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what you're saying, and I surely can appreciate that you obviously questioned the decision by your parents to put you and your brothers through homeschooling. But now being I think you said you're what, 34?
Going to be 34 in July.
So being a 33-year-old man now, in the workspace, in the creative space, in being around all of the different people that you're meeting through ACE and through Brandon's group, the Speaker School and Warm Heart Life, do you feel, I personally think that you have a much different perspective than everybody else because you weren't necessarily, what's the right word I'm looking for? You weren't like fed all of the bullshit. Right? Dude, I went to public school in the Bronx from the time I was in preschool through fifth grade. Fifth grade, my mom transferred me to private school. So junior high school, essentially, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then I went to a private high school, Fordham Prep in the Bronx. And all of those 12 years, the same way that you may have felt like, oh, what did I miss out on? What did I miss out on? I could tell you that there was moments where I was questioning my friend group and questioning like, hey, are these really my friends? Are they not my friends? And it's not until you get older and you look back and you're still close with those people and you go through those life experiences way after school that you really know who your friends are. Like my friend group now, I've known since I was one of my friends, the best man at my wedding, my boy Chris, like there's a story of like his mother and my mother met when they were pregnant. Like I legit know him my entire life, My other friends, like Sean, Drew, Jimmy, like all these other people we've known forever. And I say all this to say that like you shouldn't feel like, what did I miss out on? Because where you are now is way more important than where you've been.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm over that. Like I said, the past is the past. You're not going in that direction. I've come to peace with that. But those thoughts just came to they came to the surface more when I was in the
up a little
bit. They would pop up more. They popped up more frequently when I was like searching for a job. Wondering like. Because I would get so discouraged when I looked at these different job descriptions. Must have this experience, that experience, this experience. Must know this program, must know that software. And I'm just like, if I had known you were expecting this of me, I would have lived my life differently. But like I said, I'm not bitter. I don't doubt it as much. I know who I am. I've come to peace with that. And the only other option for me is just move forward and just try to do, because every day is a day to get better. You just got to move forward, man.
Well, I think that your parents did a great job with you. I don't know your brothers, but I met your parents briefly at the Health is Wealth event, and they seem like an amazing couple and an amazing, you know what I mean? Like, so it seems like you have a very tight relationship with your parents, and you guys are very tight. Close.
We are.
So that is something that a lot of people who may have went to school don't necessarily have. So the fact that you spent so much time with them through the homeschooling process, maybe that was like their way of keeping you guys, close and building that bond. And so, and again, I don't want to stay too much longer on homeschooling. I was just curious to know your experiences, but I think that your parents did a really good job with you.
Yeah.
I say all that to say that.
I appreciate that, man.
I want to talk a little bit about a dragon from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me the elevator pitch? We're going up the elevator. I am the head publisher for the largest publishing house in the world. Give me the elevator pitch.
I don't know how. I'm still very new of putting. I'm very. I've always been shy when I talked about my project. One was because I didn't know how to pitch it. And two, another reason why is because I've been working on this for so long. I was afraid that if I shared this, someone would steal that idea from me. But I will say, A Dragon from Heaven was something I started when I was 18. It is a world that I created through my love of literature. I mean, I would say the writer that really sparked I mentioned that my dad would read stories to me and my brothers. Sometimes during when we would have lunch and when I was homeschooling, sometimes my mom would put like an audiobook on the radio and we would listen while we ate. And there was one day she put on the cassette this book, A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. And there was something about the story that just grabbed every part and inch of my attention and my ears, just the story. And it was the author herself just reading the book aloud. And Madeleine L'Engle had such a distinct voice, so she was a pioneer when it came to not just writing, literature, storytelling, but what life looks like, when you embrace, the faith and the science. And that was I would say, she was the one that started my journey. And then just one day when I was 18, I just got this idea. That was influenced by my love of A Wrinkle in Time, because I draw my inspiration from C.S. Lewis's writings, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. I have to credit J.R. Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings. But it was also an opportunity for me to express my curiosity when it comes to professional wrestling. So I created this world inspired by the writings of Lewis, Tolkien, and my curiosity for professional wrestling. But I had this world, but I wasn't giving you a reason why you should care and why you should come to this world. And looking back now, when I was 18, when I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, I wasn't ready because I wasn't giving the reader reason why. And my reason now has been influenced by my current journey and the season that I'm in, just being vulnerable with myself, being honest with myself when it comes to family. Because because in the beginning, I saw writing and books as an escape. There's a difference between a healthy escape and an unhealthy escape. You know, it's no different when it comes to watching movies or just like watching all the episodes of Friends, for example. But I would say, because I've written about 3 drafts of this book, I would say that it is a coming of age young adult fantasy. It celebrates everything that I love. It's about a journey of a character, someone accepting oneself. And I actually had a conversation yesterday with an editor who I met through social media. And one of the questions I asked her was, what services do you offer when, in addition to like editing? She said that, you know, with one of her clients, she works with her clients and we just talk about world building because when it comes to fiction writing, there's this it's a delicate like art that you can only learn from experience. I've read so many books when it comes to the craft of writing, and I think Stephen King says it best when it comes to writing. You want to be a writer, you have to read a lot and write a lot. There's no other way around it. It's just it. And it was also Annie Lamont, I believe, the author of Bird by Bird, who taught me that you have to forgive yourself for writing a shitty first draft, you know, because in a way, I'm also a recovering perfectionist. One of the reasons why this has been so long in the making is because I was a perfectionist. I wanted this to be written in a specific way. I got frustrated at times when the right words didn't come to me. And I just got obsessed with this idea that I had to be working in the book publishing because I thought my career was supposed to influence my writing. And I thought, what better way to do that is work in the book publishing industry, because I've always been fascinated when it comes to how a book is created. When I was a student at SUNY New Paltz, I went on a field trip to Penguin Random House, which is one of the top publishers in the world. And after that tour, just learning about what's it like working there, I thought, this place is awesome. This is what I was made for, to work here. But it is so competitive. And those were the only jobs I applied for. And I was like, it became an unhealthy obsession. And when things didn't go my way, it left me very bitter because
this is after college.
This is after college, and I say all of that to try to explain, you know, why this has been a project in the making, because, you know, I want to believe that it was me getting in my own way, but also just being a perfectionist as well. And, you know, like I said, I created a world, but I wasn't giving you people a reason why you should come to this world. And another note of clarification that I got was when a couple weeks back, I flew out to Grand Rapids, Michigan to attend a writers conference. And I remember hearing an author saying, if there's a story inside of you that scares you, that's the one you need to be writing. So it's a story that terrifies me at the same time, because I feel because the main character is someone that I see a lot of myself in. I know authors have perfected a way of separating the author from the work, but but yeah, at the same time, I forget who said this. Oh my gosh, I know it's on the tip of my tongue, but I remember hearing this other quote from another great author. There's no greater agony than bearing an untold story within yourself. And the more that and I'm at the point where I've been working on this for so long, I feel that I'm just doing such great injustice to people talking about a product when I don't have a product to give you. And I'm at the point where I don't know whether to let AI get involved. I know and understand the benefits, the pros when it comes to using AI, but I'm convinced that yes, AI does have its benefits, but in the creative realm, you're opening up a can of worms because it's a conversation that's open to debate, and I want to. And it's also like, this is my kid. This book is like my child, that I want to give this child to the correct person that knows how to care for this child.
You're talking about you as far as like an editor.
Yeah, an editor.
Well, let me ask you this question.
Sure.
A Dragon from Heaven. The story's done.
Yes.
How long is it?
It is about right now the final draft is over 300 pages.
Okay. The character, feel free to tell me when you don't want to give information, because I understand that there is an IP sort of aspect to this. Where does the story take place? What's the world called?
So I will say this, and one of the things I've always been fascinated about is like how authors of the fantasy genre like come up with these names. You have I've come across like authors and stories that I'm like, how the hell do I even pronounce this name? Like, I believe that Lewis got the name Narnia was actually from a town in Italy. That's where he got his inspiration. You got Tolkien, who was a master when it came to language, just making up. He made his own language. Like, he's a genius when it comes to like crafting an entire like language. For me, when I was trying to think of a world to call my fantasy world, I'm just like, what can I do? And
not Jeff's world?
No.
That would be too.
Yeah. That would just be too broad. Like, for me, it can't be too broad, but at the same time, it can't be something that your reader is going to be like struggling to pronounce.
Yeah.
So how I came to name this fantasy world A Dragon from Heaven, I remember going to church. There was this one hymn that we would always sing, and there was a line. I forget the exact words, but one of the lines started off with this word yonder. And there was that word always mystified me whenever I hear that word.
Off yonder.
Off yonder, yeah, off in the yonder, blue wonder. So I decided, as I was meditating on that word, I decided to call this world Yondera.
Yondera.
Yeah.
All right.
It's made up, but it's something
it's supposed to be made up.
Exactly.
It's not supposed to be.
Yeah,
it's not like it's Pluto.
Exactly. But it's like something but I wanted to be something simple enough for someone to remember, because I feel that one of the challenges that I'm up against is there's just so many like reincarnations of like the same story when it comes to like fantasy. How many more times are we going to see the chosen one? How many more times are we going to like see like the same thing like rehashed over and over and over again? So one of the challenges I face is, how do I bring that anew? So you have this fantasy world, and my book is a portal fantasy because you have this fantasy world, Yondera, but you also have our world.
Earth.
Yeah. Earth. And
wait, so people go back and forth between Earth and Yondera?
Yes.
Okay.
They
How
do.
do you get to Yondera? Without giving me too much, but I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about this because this is intriguing to me because I'm thinking about like what I would call my world.
Yeah, I mean, I know, and to be quite honest, this is
it sounds fun.
Yeah.
Now if I'm thinking about my world, like
no, this is because honestly, this is like the very first time that I'm talking about this because
this is great, groundbreaking.
Yeah, because like I said, it's something that's very sacred to me. like I said, I'm at the point where I've been working on this for so long that I'm afraid that someone has either beat me to it or they are going to steal the idea.
Yeah, but dude, how you going to know if you don't put it out there?
Exactly.
Bruh, like,
exactly.
Go back
You're
to
right.
your quote from before. What did you say? The true tragedy is the story that
There's no greater agony than bearing an untold story.
Bro, there's no greater agony
You're right.
than bearing an untold story.
You're absolutely right.
So what the fuck?
I got my. That's a conversation. That's a conversation for another time. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
This is all new to me. This is all part of me. Just being like honest and like learning. Like what it takes building your platform as a writer. With someone that has a product that's in development. Because I'm still learning all of this. I'm still trying to. I'm still learning how to like. I still don't know if I'm going to go the traditional route or the self-publishing route.
You were talking about the self-publishing route. You were talking about the traditional route. You were talking about using AI. So, but from what I understand, you had put in the show notes when I had asked you some specific questions that you were looking for help with editing. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what does that actually looking at? What kind of a reader and or partner are you looking for?
I'm looking for someone that understands.
Because you never know who's going to see this.
Exactly. I mean, I have spoken to people. I have given it to I have given this to like some of my friends who have given me feedback, and and I've delayed on this because going back to me being a recovering perfectionist.
A recovering perfectionist.
Because
we're gonna get to that. I have a question on that.
Yeah. But I have shown this to other people. They've given me feedback. I shared this with a close friend of mine, and I remember one piece of feedback he gave back to me was for the main character. The main character of A Dragon from Heaven is his name is going to be Chris Johnson, Chris with a K. And one of the impressions my friend gave to me was, he seems like a miserable person. And I said, how come? He looks like he doesn't have something that he's looking forward to. And it was a good opportunity. It was a good constructive criticism for me because I saw how I could only live in my head for so long. I don't know who said this, but it takes a village to create a novel. So I'm putting myself, more out there. And what now? What else are you going to tell me?
Scott Kaufman. Remember Scott that I had on the show? He's a literary agent. I should connect you to Scott Kaufman.
Okay.
Yeah. He's a friend of mine. I had him on the show. He's a literary agent. As you were saying that right now, like he helps get books placed. And he could probably help point you in the right direction and just give you some pointers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he helps authors get their books published, both traditionally, self-published. That's what he does for a living. So he might be somebody that I can connect you with.
Okay. But yeah.
See, you never know. Just have a conversation.
Absolutely. You never know, man. But going back to my original point, like I said, I've always been hesitant to share this because I wanted to make sure that I gave it to someone that shared my vision. There's an expression when it comes to writing to killing your darlings. What that's talking about is, when you're in the editing process, there are things that you, the writer, may think is working, but the editor says that's not working. So that's where it originates from, killing your darlings. Because, the craft of fiction writing is very, like I said, it's something that you have to learn by doing. And, there are times where I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, but. Yeah,
but can I just stop you right there if you don't mind?
Sure.
That's everything.
You're right. It is everything. You're right. Absolutely.
Claudio, first time you filmed a podcast, you knew what the hell you were doing? No. And what'd you do? You just kept doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and figured it out. And even right now, you're still learning stuff, right?
Look at you now. Look at you now. Yeah, no, I say
first time I tried to sell somebody a house, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
You're right. No, you're
I just kept doing it.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest lessons I had to learn is that there is no perfect moment. failure is not an option. You just have to effing do it. And it's a lesson that I still wish I learned early on, because there are times where I feel like I'm just making up for lost time. But to go back to my original point is my struggle right now is, have I come too far to surrender this to a machine or surrender this to another human?
Well, I would say that try both.
Yeah. No, I plan to.
And surrendering to a machine, you're talking about AI?
Yes. I understand there's pros and cons, but like I said, this is all I'm learning all this in a real time.
Yeah, me too.
Me too. It just shows that I'm still I'm answering questions that I've been putting off for way too long. And like I said, it's like I have this patient urgency. Someone may have said it a better way. Just being aggressively patient, but also being urgent as well, because I've given myself the goal of have this out, ready to be sold, ready to be read before I turn 35.
All right, so we're talking 12 months, 13 months?
Pretty much.
All right, so how many people do you talk to about this book and about your goal of getting it published by the time you're 35? Is this the first time you've said that publicly?
You're the second person I've told.
Well, now we've also got lots of other people that are watching, and they're all going to see it too.
Hey, it's out there. It's now out there. I shared that with the editor who I was speaking to yesterday.
Oh, man. All right.
Because she asked me deep questions like, how has the story progressed when you first started writing when you're 18 and where you are now, and And again, I don't say this as an excuse of why it's been taking so damn long, but one of the reasons why it was hard for me was because I saw so much of myself in the main character, Chris Johnson, and a lot of it was stuff that at that time I absolutely despised about myself. But it wasn't until I started to be vulnerable and when I started to put myself out there, when I started to go to speaker school, when I started getting involved in ACE, was when I learned to finally accept myself that this is what you've been repressing. This is part of your story. And think of so many people that you can reach when you share your story, when you are your authentic self.
I agree 1,000%. And I think that you need to just keep telling yourself that. Mm-hmm. By you keeping it so close to the vest, you're not helping anybody, nor most importantly, you're not helping yourself. It's great that we can offer words of wisdom and we can offer advice to the general public, to specific friends, family, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, dude, you got to help yourself. And it seems like as I'm talking to you, you have a deep desire to get this story out. And it seems like a lot of the qualities that you saw in the character that resembled characteristics of your own, you've sort of dealt with or are dealing with currently.
Yes.
I mean, look, dude, it's much easier said than done. But you've come a very, very, very long way. You've got a group of people that we're very familiar with through the ACE community. Brandon at Warm Heart Life is an amazing person. Big shout out to Brandon. Big shout out to Dave, to Sean from ACE. You've got people, man. And this is the last thing I'm going to say on it because I have some other questions for you before we wrap up. But just get it out there, man. Get it out there, dude.
I will.
Get it out there.
I will.
You're doing yourself a disservice.
You're right.
So
you're right.
All right. I want to talk about your your health, your physical health a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a clip on your Instagram of you chopping a tree at the ACE Summit.
Yes.
It seemed like I wasn't there for that moment. That just happened at the most recent ACE Summit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wasn't at that summit. I was at the one before that where I, too, took part in the tree chopping, say that 10 times in a row, exercise. Tell me what that moment meant and felt like for you because it seemed very emotional for you. Tell me what that moment felt. What was that tree, and what was the significance of that?
Wow. Well, that's deep. I don't know if it's because this May marks 2 years since I started going to ACE. When I first discovered ACE, I'm gonna answer that in a long answer, because I want to make sure that listeners have the full context of why that moment is significant to me. The whole reason why I started going to ACE, Action Cultivates Excellence, in the very beginning was because I was looking for a new job, and I was so discouraged by applying online with no answers that I started to go, to Westchester area, started to go to like Stanford, and the person who introduced me to ACE originally was Rob Tracy, and it was only because of Rob Tracy that I've been coming to Stanford, to Westchester, someone from the Hudson Valley, because I wanted to see what else was out there. Because the whole reason why I started to go to ACE was because I thought it was like some kind of like networking, opportunity that was like geared towards men. Mm-hmm. I'm not exaggerating this. And I believe Claudia may have heard me say this, but the first time I went to an ACE dinner, I walked into Salehouse, and when I saw Dave Regina, I almost turned around and went back in my car after driving an hour, 15 minutes, because I thought he was the scariest dude in the world. I was terrified because prior to that, I've always been someone that's insecure as a man. I always felt I'm insecure of my appearance and my health. As someone who's had celiac disease as long since birth, which is a autoimmune disease where there is no medical cure, I've always felt insecure, and I always felt secure around other men who I thought were more successful than me and bigger than me physically. So I felt very insecure when I went to my very first ACE dinner. But like I said, the whole reason why I started going was because I wanted to connect with the right person who was going to give me the job that I needed, that would make me happy. It was all about how can this person help me instead of what can I do to help you. So I went to some of the ACE dinners here and there sporadically, and on March 25th of 2025, I was at the Tear It Down dinner, and I was in Dave's breakout group, and I was confronted with this question: are you truly happy? Are you telling yourself the truth? And that's when I just became vulnerable. It was then when I started. That's when I finally opened up and said, guys, I listed what I was like currently battling, what I was wrestling with. I became vulnerable because I at that time, I didn't feel like I was necessarily safe because I was so insecure. But ever since I started to become honest with myself as a man, being vulnerable, it's been liberating for me. And so when I started to become more honest with myself and being more open, being vulnerable during the breakout sessions, I started to feel like I was at home. Now, leading up to the ACE Summit, usually if I'm going to sign up for an event, I would usually say, oh God, is this a good idea? Should I do this? But when I saw the ACE Summit advertised, I said, you know what? Let's do this. Sign me up. Let's do this. And I remember that Friday, that weekend, I remember being on the phone with my mom, just talking to her before I hopped in the car. She told me that she was praying for me very specifically because she felt that God was going to show up for me at that weekend. And I said, really? Because I didn't know what to expect. Mm-hmm. I wanted to believe it was true, but but yet in the back of my mind, I was trying to think like what to expect. I was trying so hard not to have like this expectation of going to the ACE Summit.
Yep.
And because, even though I felt safe, I felt welcomed, I felt distant. I felt like, this really wasn't a place for me. And so I get to the summit, we're doing all the activities, we're doing the breakout sessions, we're doing the cold plunge, we're doing the kettlebell workouts.
Mm-hmm.
That Sunday morning before the wood cutting, I got up early, and I remember walking to the patio area of the venue we were at in the Catskills. I had my ACE journal with me. It was just me. This was like 5 in the morning. It was just me by the fireplace. And usually when I'm alone, I listen to like music, but I just dwelt in the silence. And with this ACE journal, I just started writing. I just started writing things that I never thought I would have the courage to write. It was as if I was making a contract with myself, promising myself that I would be a different man. I would be a different man, the man that God wanted me to be. And learning to forgive those who've hurt me, learning to forgive myself and all the mistakes that I made. So I just wrote all of this deep stuff out. And, fast forward, we get to the workout, we're on that hilltop, and we do the kettlebell workout, and then we move into the axe cutting activity, because the wood cutting activity it's symbolic of what you're fighting through. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Joe K can explain this better than me, but I definitely saw that it was an example of what you're fighting through. And so I cut one piece of wood, and, I'm panting, and I remember Dave passing by me, and Dave said to me, "You're holding back." I'm so glad he told me that. So everyone had their turn, and then I just got this piece of wood, and I just started chopping away. I just started chopping away, and I'm trying not to get emotional about this, man. I'm really trying hard. But it was as if I was finally putting to death the things that no longer served me. I'm crying. I'm swearing like a sailor. I'm flipping that piece of wood off, F everything that no longer served me. And when I finally cut that piece of wood, everyone gathered around me as if I won the Super Bowl. Mm. I had my eyes closed the whole time because I was in such disbelief that this was happening. I was convinced I was in a dream. I thought, this is not supposed to happen to me. These are not my blood biological brothers. These are strangers to me, yet they're celebrating over me. They are treating me like I belong here. And, when I remember like I was up there, pointing to the sky and just, not knowing how to process this moment. I remember someone said to me, "Jeff, open your eyes," and just coming down to earth. And I said, this is my moment. This is my God moment. But after that, I was emotional for the rest of the day, and one of the guys told me to make sure you get those pieces of wood, because I still have those pieces of wood in my apartment. And I look at that, and I have my ACE axe right there. I have it as like a memorial to remember that moment. Mm-hmm. But even though I publicly announced that was my God moment, I still had doubt in my mind, and I thought, did I really mean that? And I remember that afternoon, walking down, just sitting, just processing, what happened. I had my Bible, and I opened up my Bible, and I promise you, this is exactly what happened. I looked down at my Bible, and this was the very first verse I saw, and it comes from Isaiah 45. Truly, O God of Israel, our Savior, you work in mysterious ways. Nothing else needs to be said.
No, I get it, man. I could see why it was so emotional. And I think that the visual on your Instagram of that moment doesn't really even give it justice to what you just explained. So thank you for sharing that. That was that was touching.
Yeah, and I'll be very honest, and I don't know if I've told this to many people. I can't watch that clip. I can't. And I even tell this to Mike all the time. I can't watch that clip. It gets me so emotional every time I watch it because I'm still, to this day, I'm still in disbelief that moment actually happened. And looking back now, and I'm still processing this to this day, and, you know, and as we were doing the kettlebell workout, there was this other Bible verse that kept coming to my mind, you know, because we're on a hilltop, and I kept thinking about Psalms 121. I will lift my eyes to the hills. From where comes my help? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. Looking back now, I'm convinced that was God speaking to me. And looking back now at that wood cutting, it was as if I was sealing the deal. I was signing off on that contract between me and God because I was fighting through everything that no longer served me. But it was also symbolic of what God had did for me, the action that God took for me on that cross. It was as if God was speaking to me and telling me that he loved me. I died for you. Why are you living this way? I died for you so you could be free. Stop advocating for your sins. Stop negotiating with your sins and those things that no longer serve you. Stop celebrating this banquet in the grave. You're not meant to be there. And I know a lot of Christians, a lot of believers who are maybe listening are probably going to be surprised at me saying this. It was as if God was telling me, don't come back to the cross if you're coming to the cross to find those things, because you're not going to find them there. They're gone. I died for you so you could be free, because that's not who you were made to be. You know, I mean, I say this, and I would say when it comes to faith, the greatest difference between the Christian faith and all other religions, Jesus didn't come so you could feel good because you were sick. Jesus came because you were dead and you needed to live. And it never really dawned on me this Easter. I remember my pastor giving this message. He said, the reason why the stone was rolled away, not so much because Jesus needed to get out, so that you can look inside. That's why, to put it in a long way, that moment has meant so much to me. And I wish I can say that marked the end of that journey, but right now the journey has only begun. I now know, and that's why ACE has meant so much to me. You know, that's why I've been spending so much time in Westchester, in Stanford, is because these are the people that have helped me. And the fact that Dave and Sean consider me their brother, I don't take that lightly. I really don't. I'm grateful. And as I become more honest with myself and vulnerable with myself, I just can't wait to see what else God has in store for me. So I'm eternally grateful for that summit.
That was extremely well put.
Thank you.
What I would say from the outside looking in is to use that moment, that video, that axe, that broken piece of wood as inspiration and not motivation. There's a lot of talk on in the self-help and the personal development world when it comes to like motivation being basically crap, right? You could be motivated for a moment. You could be motivated to do certain things, but to be inspired and to have somebody or something inspire you to change and then to have the discipline to follow through with it is what the real difference maker is. So I would say just, use it as inspiration as your story unfolds. And whenever you're doubting yourself, whenever you're in that moment and it's like, what should I do? Or whenever you're paralyzed by perfection or whatever it is, dude, just do it. Look at that piece of wood, look at that axe, and you'll have the inspiration for you to be able to step forward. I'd like to ask you a question that I ask every single person that sits in that chair. Long after Jeff is gone, the world is talking about you, and how do you want the world to talk about you? What is it you want people to say about you long after you're gone? What do you want your legacy to be?
Damn.
You knew it was coming.
And I wasn't ready. I would say when this is all said and done, I want people to think of me as someone who didn't hold back, who took action, someone who was a man of his word, that lived like there was no tomorrow. I want people to think of me as someone who did what it took to put myself out there, someone who forgave himself, someone who accepted himself, who didn't let comparison and perfectionism stand in his way, who told himself that it's not about me, it's about them. And there was a reason why I was made. There was a reason why I was born in the way that I am. And I just gave it all back to God. I just gave it all back to him. And I learned I was someone who was a man of faith. And one way that I view faith is an acronym for forsaking all, I trust him. Being okay with the unknown. Someone who was brought up in the realm of comfort, who spent the rest of his time in the uncomfortable zone, being okay walking and wandering in the wilderness, knowing that everything was going to be okay.
Very well said.
Thank you.
Very well said. How do people get in touch with you? I'd like you to look at that camera right there. Tell people how to get in touch with you. I don't know if you have a website or anything that you'd like to promote or push. Maybe your social medias, whatever it is. That's your camera right there.
So I don't have a website yet, but the best way to stay in touch with me and watch me on this journey is Instagram. My Instagram username is jseitz with a Z. jseitz with a Z, Seitz with a Z. And I appreciate you following me, and I can't wait to show you guys what's next to come.
So thank you very much for joining me here today. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot more about you than I already knew, and that's the whole purpose of this podcast, is just to give people a platform to share, to learn about each other. And again, man, I really appreciate you coming here.
Thank you, Steve.
This has been another episode of the Padernacht podcast, Brick by Brick, and we will see you guys next week.